So here's how I had my setup. I was running extension cords to get out here to a 10 amp power supply, supplying the both radios, 706 and the Linko 150 DRT, I think, or something like that, and my SWR meter. So on the back, those connections are this is the coax here from the tuner, and then this just loops through to the radio, coming down here. This is the control. This one here is the control cable from the tuner, and then that one's power. So we'll trace these back to the tuner. I'll show you them. So they connect over here. Everything's just kind of prototyped. I'll make them all waterproof at some point, but this is just what I did for now. This is that control cable. I think one of these is ground internal. Oh yeah, don't mind my hand, I was playing with my kids. But just in case, this is a ground that you actually use to ground the tuner to like a grounding rod. So what I did was I ran a ground braid to connect the radio to the tuner. In the event one of these is ground, I need to look up the schematic. I might be creating a ground loop, which is not good, but you know, for a couple days, it's not the end of the world. And this is just the coax. This actually goes inside. That's a waterproof connection. Both of those are, well, grommet, and they're actually hardwired inside here. You take these screws out, the whole thing lifts apart. It's supposed to be a gasket, but the gasket dry rotted. This thing's, you know, really old, so I just taped it for now. This wire connects to the same lug there, and this actually does go to the ground rod. So I'm grounding the tuner and the radio and the antenna all to the same ground rod, and then running the ground from the rod to the tuner over to the radio, so they're all connected. And like I said, if this does have a ground, you know, maybe I'm duplicating and I shouldn't, but that's just kind of the way I did it. This is the output or input from the tuner. So when this transmits, you're sending high voltage, and then the antenna is sending it back in here. Inside of here, there's a whole bunch of coils and relays, and it just fires through to try and figure out the right match for the antenna. Let me go to the ground rod next. So the ground rod, I'm just using an aluminum rod that I happen to have, using a pipe clamp. You know, this is not right, but it's just kind of like messing around. This wire comes out and around to kind of increase the ground plane, and that's what connects to the tuner. And then also from the rod is, and this is speaker wire. I split it in half, so I got two wires. Again, probably not best, but it's what I had and what I used, you know, just kind of messing around. Comes all the way over here to the antenna, along with the feed line. It's running right next to it, so they both come back. The ground will go over first. The way this antenna works, this is just a spike with a thread, you know, threaded end. You just pound this guy into the ground. Careful not to maul the edges. So I used a piece of wood. It's supposed to have a little piece you screw on top, and it has like a cap that you can hit, and that way it won't mess up the threads. But it doesn't have that because it was surplus and it's missing a bunch of pieces. But you know, I just used a piece of wood on top, and I hit the wood with hammer, and that worked fine. So this is that speaker wire going here. These are just little wing nuts on Allen heads, socket cap. So it only has 3 of these. It's supposed to have 4. There's a third one back here. Again, it's, you know, like I said, missing pieces. But what was nice is it does have these radials that have these little hooks on them. They were kind of in the pictures. And so I'll trace one of these guys out so you can kind of see that. It's kind of interesting. They come all the way out here. I don't know how long they are. I should probably measure them. But they're on these reels, which are kind of cool. I don't know if this is like an actual fly fishing reel. I don't fly fish. But they spin up like that to wind it back up so it don't get all tangled. 3 of the 4 don't click, and one of them does. Like, it maybe really is, it has drag. like it's a real fishing reel. So maybe I'll take them apart and work on them and see if I can get them all to click, because I kind of like it. But yeah, they seem to unwind and wind okay, so that was kind of interesting. And so there's 4 of those radials just out in you know, a cross pattern. And then how this connects to the antenna is weird. I've never hooked up a mast antenna, so I had to Google it, and it's just wrapped around. It came with this ring, or I'm forgetting the term now. Clamp, there you go. And you just clamp it on there. You know, some guys were wrapping it around a lot more. This is just a home appliance wire. I forget what gauge it is. Maybe it says, where is it? I don't even see it on here. I know it's on here somewhere. Maybe 14 gauge. Yeah, 14. Let's see if I can get it on focus. I don't know, it's 14 gauge. So that was okay. It's held in place with these guy lines. You know, it just can't, stakes and guy lines. I'm probably not using these guys right either. I use figure 9s for all my camping stuff. I haven't used these since I was a kid, but I mean, they worked okay. And they just go up, and then I'll show you against the sky so you can kind of see. I mean, this thing, like I said, I've never messed with a mast before, but it's got a lot of give, which I guess is good for the wind. I just expected it to be a lot more rigid than that. But one interesting thing with this antenna is that the top section does come off, and there's an adapter you can get. I don't know if it's still available, maybe surplus as well, but it's on a ball mount with a spring, and it's made to be used as a mobile whip on Humvees. So that's kind of interesting. But overall, I mean, it was fun. I learned some stuff, and I'm sure things could be better. I'm sure I could do things differently, but you know, that's kind of how I did it.